Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Priyan Goyal and I work as a software engineer at Google. I'll start this video by showing you something, and for that let's go to my LinkedIn profile. So I joined Google recently and I posted about that on my LinkedIn profile. To my surprise, this post got pretty famous, and at the moment it has 2.3 million views and 56,000 likes, and it is still growing. These are huge numbers. Now, because of this post getting so many views, people get to know that I work at Google, and I started getting a lot of LinkedIn messages, and most of them were about sharing my Google interview experience, what was the process, and what are the expectations in the interview rounds. So here I am, and I'll be talking about that in this video. I'll start with a bit more introduction about myself so that you can know me well. I've done my BTech in Computer Science and Engineering from Indian Institute of Technology BHU Varanasi, and I graduated in 2015. And as of now, I have a bit more than 4 years of work experience as a software engineer, and since past 4+ years, I'm living in Bangalore. Before moving ahead, I would like to mention about two things. First thing, this video is not monetized. This means that I'll not be making any money out of this video, no matter how many views it will get. And this video is kind of a community contribution so that people can get benefit out of my experience. Second thing is that all the images, logos and music that are used in this video are royalty free, and the links for the same can be found in the video description. I am explicitly stating this because I do not want this video to get stuck into copyright issues. Having said that, I have something more to share with you. I did not give Google interviews directly, and I've given many other interviews before applying to Google. Overall, I've given interviews for these 5 MNCs: Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Apple, and Facebook. So I've completed the full interview process for each of these companies, which means that I've reached to the on-sites for each of these. I applied for a general software engineer position for all of these companies, and for Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, the location was Bangalore, India, and for Apple, the location was Hyderabad, India, and for Facebook, the location was Singapore. So Facebook called me Singapore with all airfare, hotels, and visa sponsored, and that was good. The order in which I started my application process in these companies is, so the first company where I applied was Facebook. I was aware that Facebook does not have any office in India, so I have to apply to a different country, and this process will take time. So I applied to Facebook very early, and I applied to Facebook London, Dublin, and Singapore offices, and my application was chosen for Facebook Singapore. So I had my whole process for Facebook Singapore. For Microsoft and Amazon, I had my process for Bangalore location, and after that I applied to Apple for Hyderabad, and in the last I applied for Google. I'm telling this to you so that you can get an idea about my preparation before I started interviewing at Google. Before moving to my interview experience, let me tell you the results of my interviews with these 5 companies. I am very happy and proud to tell you that I was selected in Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Apple, and I was rejected in Facebook. Repeating that again, I was able to crack the software engineering interviews at Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Apple, and I was rejected in Facebook. In Facebook, I'm not sure why was I rejected because my coding interviews went well. I think that the system interview round might be the culprit because there is no fixed solution to a system interview question. So yeah, rejection happens. But in this video, I've shared only my Google interview experience. Also, one more disclaimer before I start this video. The experience that I'm gonna share here is of a 4 years experienced guy and for a software engineer position. So the experiences that you might have heard from your friends, relatives, or you yourself might have experienced can be different basis on the years of experience and the position applied. Also, this is my personal experience, so comparing it to anyone else will not work. I'll follow a step-by-step process and will tell you in detail about each step in the process. So let's start. Step 1, which is often the most important step in any interview process, getting connected to the recruiter. Well, in my case, I do not have to do anything, as one of the Google recruiters who sits in Singapore approached me and I got an email in which she asked if I'm interested in applying to Google and mentioned about the available positions for software developer at Google Bangalore office. And then all I have to do is to reply to that email. The next thing that I did was sharing my resume with the HR. I used the same resume for all of these 5 companies, and I was not applying for any specific role, and I was applying for a general software engineer position. I was aware that my resume is gonna be my first impression to the HR, so it was very important for me to build a good resume. I remember that it took around 3 days for making my resume, and I got it reviewed by a few friends of mine so that I'm sure that I'm not missing on anything. I kept the following points in mind when I was making the resume. The first and the most important thing is your resume should be short and crisp. So I made a 1-pager resume, and in the details of my project I just mentioned the highlights of the projects, not the full exact details. And the info that I mentioned was having the data, the numbers that can show the impact of my work to anyone. Because when any external person like an HR will just go through your resume, then they can judge you only by the impact of your work. Second point was that use bullet points and do not write paragraphs. This is a big negative. Nobody get time to read the paragraphs in your resume, and if anything is going like more than 2 lines, just break it into more bullet points, and just writing a paragraph will not help. Third thing is that keep the must see things on the top. So in my case, I was a 4 years experienced guy, so I put my employment section at the top, and then I put my languages and technology section because I wanted the HR to go through these in a specific order. And after that, I put my education section and then rest of these. Another point is that do not write everything in your resume and leave something to be discussed in the interviews. So it should not happen that if you are in an interview and the interviewer asks you something, it should not feel like just reading your resume. Another thing was that choose a good template and use good fonts and spacing, and it should be balanced, it should be readable, and it should not be having a lot of data on one side and a lot of spacing on one side. It should look good. Now that I'm talking about resume making, if you do not have your resume handy, or do you want to prepare your resume really quick, I have something for you. I've shared my resume template in the doc format in the end of this video, so that you can just download it and edit it in the Microsoft Word, and your resume is ready really quick. So please do not miss the end. So the next step is the recruiter call. So around 1 week later, I got a call from the recruiter, and this call was having a few agendas. First thing was for the recruiter to get to know more about my background, if I'm interested in any specific team at Google or any specific role at Google. Second thing was something that I didn't expect, and that was a kind of rapid fire round of technical questions. These were like 1-word answer questions and were pretty easy. So if you are preparing for Google interviews, these questions should not bother you. So after 2 days of the recruiter call, I got an email asking the preferable slots for my technical telephonic interview. In that email, she also shared a few docs and videos link so that I can see and get an idea how Google interviews looks like. Google is famous for having a very high bar for coding interviews. So I thought of taking some time to prepare well for this round, and just like any other person, I was having a fear, which is the fear of rejection. I just don't want to get rejected in this round and wanted to reach at least to the on-sites. So I took time and I got my telephonic interview scheduled after 2 weeks. This was a 45 minutes round, and I was told by my recruiter that this round will be focused on data structures and algorithms. Here are a few things that my recruiter only shared with me and which I found really helpful and I'm sharing with you now. So during the interview, ask yourself that do you listen well? Well, this is incredibly important. When an interviewer tells you a question to solve, they want something from you. They want you to catch the hints, to be clear about the problem statement and the input and the output. So just let the interviewer complete the question and just listen it well. Do you feel confident with CS fundamentals? I think this is kind of self-explanatory, so I'm skipping this. Do you know what to ask to clarify the questions? So sometimes what happens is that the interviewer leaves some ambiguity in the question on purpose so that the candidate points it out and just asks the interviewer to clarify it. This gives interviewer an idea that how attentive or what is the thought process of the person. For example, what to expect in the case of overflows, what if the null values are allowed or not, etc. Point 4, which is, can you find the optimal solution of the complicated coding algorithm problem? So a problem can have multiple solutions, and it's very obvious that the first solution that you get into your mind is not the optimal one, and you'll improve the solution over the time and make it more optimal. Now, another thing that comes into picture is that are you able to explain the solution to your interviewer or not? If you are able to share your thoughts logically. I've seen people struggling here. If you have developed an extremely efficient algorithm, but you are not able to explain it to the interviewer, then trust me, it's of no use. Finally, it's the interviewer who has to judge you whether you know what you are writing or not. Next point, which is your problem solving and coding speedy and efficient with a profound knowledge in CS fundamentals? Coding speed is something which matters a lot in Google interviews. Actually, it matters a lot in any other interview for any other company. And efficient knowledge of CS fundamentals means that are you using the correct data structures or not? Are the data structure that you are using to solve the question solves each and every test case, each and every corner case? And point 6, have you covered off edge cases? This is also extremely important. Once you are done writing the code, try to dry run it with multiple inputs and multiple test cases. Perform null checks, check for the overflows, and check for different inputs and verify if the output is correct, and test the boundary conditions and just make sure that everything is working as expected. So on the day of the interview, I got the interview call from a Google employee who was working in Google Zurich office. A Google Doc was shared between me and the interviewer so that both of us can see what the other person is typing. The expectation was to write a clean modular code, not pseudocode, the actual code for the questions asked, and then unit test your code and check if it covers all the edge cases or not. This call lasted for around 45 minutes and I was asked one question and one follow-up for the same question. Before writing the code for the questions, I had a good discussion with the interviewer regarding the possible solutions, and once both of us agreed on a solution, then only I started coding for that. So my recruiter told me the result of this interview after 2 days, and the result was that I was good to go for the on-site interviews. Now the control goes to another recruiter who is in Bangalore. So my Singapore recruiter get me connected with another recruiter who works in Google Bangalore office, and he took my candidature forward from this point of time in the process. So I had a call with my Bangalore recruiter and he explained me about the next step, which was the on-site interviews. A few things that I really like about Google recruiters is that first thing is that they truly understand the candidate situation. If the candidate is feeling nervous, they'll try to make him calm and try to just tell them that okay, you can take your time. They do not force you to give the interviews, and they don't say like why are you taking so much of time and why you're not prepared at this point of time. No, nothing like that. So I told the recruiter that I feel unprepared because these are Google interviews. It's very normal for anyone to feel that they are not prepared. At the time when I was having Google interviews, I was already holding offers from Microsoft, Amazon, and Apple, but still I was feeling unprepared because I was having this in mind that the Google interviews are gonna be of an entirely different bar, and I just need to revise each and every algorithm, and I just need to practice a lot and lot and lot because I just can't go unprepared and waste my chance of clearing the interviews. So I asked him that I want to take some time, and he said, yeah, okay. And I took the date of interviews around 3 weeks later so that I can get some time to prepare for these interviews specifically. Because I was working also, so I was not getting enough time to prepare for the interviews and give time to this preparation solely. Another thing that I liked is that the recruiters will coach you well on the things that you need to prepare. So my Bangalore recruiter sent me an email in which there were a few more links of the videos around how I can prepare well for the on-site interviews. I also asked him a lot about a few things like how the ratings work at the Google interviews, like how will the interviewers gonna rate me, and what will be the process post the interviews, like uh, what happens and how will I get to the offer. And he replied to all of it very politely. So the strategy that I followed in these 3 weeks was to practice a lot on pen and paper. This is something important, as practicing on pen and paper or on a whiteboard is very much required before the on-site interviews. Because I know that in general whatever code that we write in our company or in college is on an IDE, which has the features like auto suggest, auto complete, and indexing and all. But when you start writing on a pen and paper, all these features are gone. So you have to remember the syntax, you have to manually just go and write the whole syntaxing, and it will not auto suggest on anything, so you have to remember the function names and all. And so this thing is pretty important before the on-site interviews. So around 3 weeks later, I had my on-site interviews. These were 5 interviews in a single day, and I was aware of the schedule in advance because the recruiter has already shared it with me. The schedule was something like I was having 3 coding interviews, then a lunch interview, which is actually something different, that's why it's in blue, and then one Googliness and leadership interview, and then another coding interview. I was aware of the Bangalore traffic, so I left a bit early. My interview started at 10:15 a.m. So I had 4 on-site coding interview rounds, and the process for each of them is kind of similar. So I'll be sharing what happens in a single coding interview round at Google. So this was a 45 minutes round, just like I had in the telephonic interview. In fact, all the coding interview rounds that I had on-site were of 45 minutes. The number of questions that I was asked varies from 1 to 2. Actually, it depends on the interviewer. The questions can be it can be either a single question, one question and a follow-up, or 2 different questions depending what the interviewer has thought before coming to the interview. So the process was that I was given a laptop, which was a Chromebook, and I have to type my solutions into the laptop so that the interviewer can take a snap and paste it to the hiring tool. Because I've already given the telephonic interview, I was aware that what things to keep in mind while giving the interview. So the interview started, and once the interviewer has explained me the question completely, I tried to clarify if I had any doubts and dig more about what is the exact requirement in the question. And once the clarification is done, I use the whiteboard there to discuss all the possible solutions with the interviewer. And I just took some examples for the same question, and once the solution and the implementation is finalized, I wrote that on the provided laptop. And whatever I was typing in my laptop was visible to the interviewer in their screen. And if there is any comment that the interviewer wants to give, or if there is anything that they want to point out specifically, they can just do their face to face. And once I was done with the code, I verified the solution with some test cases and tried checking the edge cases and make sure that the things are working as expected. So I had all this, and like 45 minutes are gone. Before coming to the interviews, I've heard a lot about the amazing food at the Google Bangalore office, and what's more amazing is that I do not have to eat it alone. Google has this concept of lunch interview, which is not an actual interview. I mean, the feedback for this interview is not counted in the final result. This is an amazing concept. A Googler was assigned to me for having lunch. It helped me to relax, and I asked many questions to my lunch interviewer, like whatever I have in my mind. For example, what is the culture of Google Bangalore office, and how does the day of a Googler looks like, and how many teams are there in Google Bangalore, and like a lot of other questions. And he just answered it very politely. I also had one more round in Google, and that was the Googliness and Leadership round, which is called the GNL round, and this was around 45 minutes long. Googliness is like Google's nomenclature for behavioral interview. If you have a few years of experience, then it becomes really important for the company to get to know that how have you performed in your previous companies, and how is your vision about yourself, and how will you react in a certain situations. So I had my GLN round because I was having 4 years of experience. Google is a company that is famous for its amazing culture, and I think the agenda behind this round is to check that if I'll be able to grow in Google's culture or not. It was more of a cultural fit at Google. So the question that I was asked was based on my past company experience, and there were a few hypothetical questions also. So the questions that were based on the past company experience or are behavioral in nature starts with something like, tell me about a time. And the questions that are hypothetical questions start with something like, imagine that. For past experience based questions, dedicated preparation is very important, as this round is gonna be more about me, and I should be very clear about what work I have done, and how to communicate it well. So when giving the behavioral interviews for other companies before Google, I came through an interesting fact that I later used for all of my behavioral interviews. That is, in a behavioral interview, people love hearing stories. So when the interviewer asks you a question, which is a behavioral question, just tell them the answer in the form of a story. Your story should have STAR star, which is situation, task, action, and result. If you will give the answer in this way, then the interviewer will completely understand the thing that you're trying to convey. And if you want an example, just Google a bit for the behavioral interview questions, and you'll get a lot of sample questions. Just apply this STAR method to create a story for that question. So this is how I prepared for the behavioral interviews. And you cannot prepare much for the hypothetical questions because they are more to test you as a person. So they are more of a personality trait, and you cannot change that for any of the interview. So I just went unprepared and let my personality handle these questions. After giving the interviews, I was having a feeling that the interviews went well, but again, I was aware that I should never celebrate too early. I asked the recruiter to expedite my process because of a few things going around. So my Bangalore recruiter was on leave, so there was another recruiter who was in touch with me for the results. And then I remember after 1 week later, I got the call from her, and she said that, hey Priyank, I have your result. And I was like, okay, and that is. And then she said those 3 magical words. Guess what? You are selected. And I was like, oh my god, can you say that again? Is it happening for real? And then she was like, yeah, it's happening for real, congratulations. And then I believed that, yeah, it's okay, it's happening for real. I was feeling like an achiever, a perfectionist, and whatnot. And this was like a dream come true, and even today this is an understatement. And then she just shared the compensation details, and I got the final offer letter after 2 weeks. The overall process took around 2 months, and yeah, that was my story, that how I became an engineer at Google, or the Googler, or the Noogler, And now is the time to enjoy some music and cool pictures. Okay, as mentioned previously, I went through the full interview process for all of these 5 companies. If you want me to share my interview experience for any of these companies, then please let me know in the comment section. Also, if you're interested to hear stories about how I started coding in college, or how I prepared for my coding interviews, please do comment and let me know. Also, do subscribe to my YouTube channel because I'll be posting any new videos on this channel only. If you want to know more info about me, like info about my coding profiles on different competitive programming sites, just do a Google search for the keyword Priyank20011, and then you will get the links to my profiles for Codeforces, CodeChef, Spoj and all. Priyank20011 is the username that I used for all of the coding sites. Also, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I have the same username there also. Okay, as told somewhere in the middle of this video, there are a few more things around resume making. So I found this amazing link that I'm gonna share with you. Go to your browser and type careercup.com/resume. This is written by Gail L. McDowell. She is the founder and CEO of CareerCup and author of one of the most helpful books for interview preparation, which is Cracking the Coding Interview. She has divided this resume making into different segments and marked a few numbers against each of it. And then she has explained in detail that what are the do's and don'ts while making a resume. I highly recommend you to take a look if you want to prepare a killer resume. Also, I've shared my resume template, the template that I've used for all of these companies, and you can find it here, www.tiny.cc/pg-resume. Also, I've shared this link in the description of this video, and you can just go and download my resume in the Microsoft Word doc format, and you can just edit it and make your resume really fast. If you are interested in applying to Google, you can go to careers.google.com/teams, and then you can find out if there is any open role that is suitable for your profile by selecting a division and then using the filters to trim it out. And if you find such a role, you can email me your resume and the job link at priyank.referrals@gmail.com and get a referral. Please make sure that there is an open role for you, else this is of no use. The referral will not work. I've created this email ID specifically for referral purposes, so I don't mind if this is getting flooded. Well, congratulations, you have made it to the end. I hope that by now you have a good enough idea that how Google interviews looks like. And let me know if you found this video helpful in the comment section. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.